Anna leaned over the railing of the Vaporetto, the water bus carrying her and Marco through the Grand Canal. The evening sun cast a warm, golden hue over Venice, illuminating its ancient buildings and reflecting off the water. She felt a mix of excitement and a strange sense of foreboding as they approached their stop. "This place is incredible," Marco said, snapping photos with his camera. "It's like stepping back in time." Anna nodded, her mind already drifting towards the history of the city. Venice had always fascinated her with its rich past and myriad of legends. Now, on their honeymoon, she was eager to explore every corner of it. Their hotel, a quaint building from the 17th century, stood just a few steps from the Grand Canal. The air inside was cool and slightly musty, carrying the scent of aged wood and history. The owner, an elderly man with a warm smile, handed them the keys and welcomed them with a brief history of the place. "Many stories in these walls," he said, eyes twinkling with mystery. "Some good, some not so good." Anna's curiosity was piqued. "Not so good? Like what?" The owner shrugged. "Just old tales. Enjoy your stay." Their room was charming, with tall windows offering a view of the canal. As they unpacked, Anna found herself drawn to the window, watching the gondolas glide by, their silhouettes dark against the setting sun. Later, after a delightful dinner at a nearby trattoria, they decided to take a late-night stroll. The narrow streets and bridges of Venice were deserted, the only sounds being their footsteps and the distant echo of church bells. The fog rolled in from the water, creating an eerie atmosphere. Marco held her hand tightly. "It's like a scene from a movie." As they wandered deeper into the labyrinth of streets, Anna noticed something unusual. A shadow moved in the fog, just beyond the reach of the street lamps. She squinted, trying to make out a figure, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Did you see that?" she whispered to Marco. "See what?" he asked, looking around. "A shadow or something." He laughed softly. "It's probably just the fog playing tricks on you." But Anna couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being watched. As they turned back towards the hotel, the sensation grew stronger. Her heart raced, and she clutched Marco's arm. "Let's go back," she said, her voice trembling. Back in their room, the unsettling feeling lingered. Marco dismissed it as post-travel jitters, but Anna couldn't ignore it. She sat by the window, staring out into the dark canal, her mind racing with thoughts of the shadow and the hotel owner's cryptic words. That night, as they lay in bed, Anna found it hard to sleep. She kept hearing whispers, like distant conversations, just beyond the walls. She turned to Marco, who was already fast asleep, and sighed. Perhaps she was just tired. In the early hours, just as she was about to drift off, a faint tapping sound came from the window. Her eyes shot open, and she froze, listening intently. The tapping continued, rhythmic and deliberate. She slowly got out of bed and approached the window. Peering out, she saw nothing but the dark canal and the faint outline of buildings across the water. She opened the window, letting the cool air rush in, and the tapping ceased. Shivering, she closed it quickly and returned to bed, the sense of unease stronger than ever. Morning came with the sound of church bells and the bustling activity of the canal. Marco was already up, excitedly planning their day. He noticed Anna's tired eyes and asked, "Did you sleep at all?" "Not really," she admitted. "I kept hearing things." He wrapped his arms around her. "You're probably just exhausted from the trip. Let's get some coffee and start our adventure. Venice awaits." As they stepped out into the bright morning, Anna couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. The shadow from the night before lingered in her mind, a silent companion to their exploration of the city. Their adventure had just begun, but Anna knew that something darker awaited them in the shadows of Venice. The morning light filtered through the tall windows of their room, casting a warm glow on the ancient wooden floors. Anna felt slightly more at ease, though the memory of the previous night's events lingered at the back of her mind. After a quick breakfast of pastries and coffee at a nearby cafe, she and Marco set off to explore the city. Their first stop was the Biblioteca Nazionale Marciana, a grand library filled with ancient manuscripts and historical records. Anna was in her element, her fingers brushing over the spines of old books, as she scanned the shelves for anything about Venetian legends and ghost stories. Marco, ever the supportive husband, snapped photos of the library's stunning architecture, while Anna immersed herself in research. She eventually found a section dedicated to local folklore and began poring over the texts. One book in particular caught her eye. It was an old leather-bound volume titled Legends of the Venetian Canals. She carefully opened it and began to read about the many ghost stories associated with the city. As she turned the pages, a specific legend stood out. The tale of Isabella, a young woman who drowned in the canal centuries ago under mysterious circumstances. According to the legend, Isabella was betrayed by her lover, a man of great influence and power. Her spirit was said to haunt the canals, seeking justice for her untimely death. Anna's heart raced as she read the chilling account, the details aligning with the eerie sensations she had felt since arriving in Venice. "Marco, listen to this," she called, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. She read aloud the passage about Isabella's haunting, watching as Marco's skeptical expression gradually turned serious. "That's interesting," he said slowly. "But it's just a story, right?" Anna shook her head. "I don't think so. There's something about this place, something real. I felt it last night." Marco nodded, his earlier skepticism wavering. "Okay, let's say for a moment that this ghost story is true. What do we do about it?" Anna's determination solidified. "We need to find out more about Isabella. If we can understand what happened to her, maybe we can help her find peace." The rest of the day was spent gathering more information. They visited museums, spoke to locals, and explored the darker corners of the city. The more they learned, the more convinced Anna became that Isabella's spirit was real and restless. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the canals, they returned to their hotel room, their minds buzzing with the day's discoveries. Marco uploaded the photos he had taken, examining each one closely. His breath caught when he noticed something unusual in one of the images. "Anna, look at this," he said, pointing to a photo of a canal they had visited earlier. In the background, barely visible through the fog, was a shadowy figure standing by the water's edge. Anna's eyes widened. "That's her, isn't it?" Marco nodded slowly. "It must be. But why is she showing herself to us?" "Maybe she knows we're trying to help," Anna suggested. "Or maybe she's warning us." That night, the supernatural occurrences in their room intensified. Objects moved on their own. The air grew cold, and faint whispers echoed through the walls. Anna had vivid, terrifying dreams of drowning, of being pulled into the dark waters of the canal by invisible hands. When she woke in a cold sweat, Marco was already awake, sitting at the edge of the bed with a troubled expression. "We need to be careful," he said. "This is more than just a ghost story. If we're not careful, we could be in real danger." Anna nodded, fear and determination mingling in her chest. "I know, but we can't stop now. We're too close to the truth." They decided to visit the hotel owner again the next day, hoping he could shed more light on the history of Isabella and the building they were staying in. As they drifted off to sleep, the sense of being watched never left them, a silent reminder that the past was never far behind in the haunting shadows of Venice. Morning arrived with a soft mist hanging over the canal, the city slowly waking up to the sound of church bells and the gentle splash of water against stone. Anna and Marco made their way downstairs to speak with the hotel owner, determined to uncover more about Isabella's tragic story. The owner greeted them warmly, but his eyes narrowed slightly when Anna mentioned Isabella. "Ah, Isabella," he said, his voice heavy with age and memory. "A sad story indeed. Many say her spirit still roams the canals, seeking justice. Do you believe it?" Marco asked, trying to gauge the man's sincerity. The owner shrugged. "In Venice, belief is a complicated thing. The past is always with us, intertwined with the present. What matters is what you choose to see." Anna pressed further, asking about the history of the hotel and its connection to Isabella. The owner sighed and led them to a small sitting room filled with old photographs and documents. He pointed to a faded portrait of a young woman with sad eyes and flowing dark hair. "That is Isabella," he said. "She was once a guest here many years ago, betrayed by a lover who promised her the world, but left her to drown in the canal." The air in the room seemed to grow colder as he spoke, and Anna felt a chill run down her spine. "Do you know who he was?" she asked. The owner shook his head. Only rumors. Some say he was a nobleman, others a wealthy merchant. His identity was never revealed, and Isabella's spirit was never at peace. Armed with this new information, Anna and Marco decided to continue their investigation. They spent the day visiting various historical sites around the city, gathering more pieces of the puzzle. The more they learned, the more the hauntings intensified. That evening, as they returned to their hotel room, the atmosphere felt charged with energy. The moment they stepped inside, the air grew frigid and the lights flickered. Marco grabbed his camera, hoping to capture evidence of the paranormal activity. Suddenly, a mirror on the wall shattered, sending shards of glass flying across the room. Anna screamed and ducked, her heart pounding. Marco rushed to her side, pulling her away from the broken glass. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice trembling. Anna nodded, though her hands were shaking. "We need to figure this out," she said. "Isabella is trying to tell us something." As they carefully cleaned up the mess, Anna couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every shadow seemed to move. Every whisper seemed to call her name. That night, her dreams were even more vivid and terrifying. She found herself standing by the canal, the water dark and foreboding. She could see Isabella's reflection in the water, her eyes filled with sorrow and anger. "Help me," Isabella whispered, her voice echoing through Anna's mind. "Find him." Anna woke with a start, gasping for breath. She looked over at Marco, who was still asleep, and decided to get some fresh air. She stepped out onto the balcony, the cool night air helping to calm her racing heart. The canal below was eerily quiet, the fog rolling in like a ghostly blanket. As she stood there, she noticed a shadowy figure standing on the opposite side of the canal, watching her. Her breath caught in her throat, and she felt a wave of fear wash over her. The figure didn't move, just stood there, silent and menacing. "Marco!" she called, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Marco, wake up." He stumbled out onto the balcony, rubbing his eyes. "What is it?" "There," Anna pointed. "Do you see it?" Marco squinted into the fog, but the figure had disappeared. "I don't see anything," he said, wrapping an arm around her. "Come on, let's go inside." As they went back into the room, the sense of unease lingered. The hauntings were becoming more intense, more personal. Objects moved on their own, whispers filled the air, and Anna's dreams grew more vivid and disturbing. She saw flashes of Isabella's last moments, felt the cold water closing in around her, and heard the desperate cries for help. One night, as they lay in bed, a loud bang echoed through the room, jolting them both awake. The door to their room was wide open, and a cold breeze swept through. Anna sat up, her heart pounding. "We can't keep ignoring this," she said. "We need to find out what happened to Isabella and put her spirit to rest." Marco nodded, his face pale but determined. "We will," he said. "We'll figure this out together." With each passing day, the hauntings grew more intense, and the urgency to solve the mystery became more pressing. The shadow of Isabella's tragic past loomed over them, and Anna knew that until they uncovered the truth, they would never be free from the haunting shadows of Venice. The fog lifted as the sun rose over Venice, bathing the city in a golden light that belied the darkness Anna and Marco felt creeping ever closer. Determined to uncover the truth about Isabella, they headed to the Archivio di Stato, Venice's state archives, where centuries of documents and records were kept. The archivist, an elderly woman with sharp eyes and a gentle smile, guided them to a secluded reading room. "This is where you will find the oldest records," she said. "But be careful with the documents. They are fragile." Anna nodded, feeling a sense of reverence as she handled the old manuscripts. She and Marco spent hours combing through letters, court records, and personal diaries, hoping to piece together the story of Isabella's betrayal and death. It was Marco who found the first clue, a diary entry from 1692, written by a young noblewoman named Lucia. The entry detailed an affair between Isabella and a man named Lorenzo, a wealthy merchant with connections to the Venetian nobility. According to Lucia, Lorenzo promised Isabella marriage and a life of luxury, only to abandon her when it was politically expedient. "Listen to this," Marco said, reading aloud. Isabella trusted him, believed his every word. She went to the canal that night, expecting a romantic rendezvous. Instead, She found only cold water and despair. Anna's heart ached for Isabella. So Lorenzo was the one who betrayed her. But why? What could have been so important that he would leave her to die? They continued their search, delving deeper into Lorenzo's background. Marco found business records that showed Lorenzo's involvement in a trade deal that required him to maintain a spotless reputation. Marrying a commoner like Isabella would have jeopardized his standing and the lucrative deal. As they pieced together the story, Anna felt a growing connection to Isabella. She could almost hear the young woman's voice, pleading for justice, for recognition of her suffering. Their research took them to an old church near the Grand Canal, where they hoped to find more clues about Isabella's final moments. The church, San Giovanni e Paolo, was a grand structure with high ceilings and intricate stained glass windows. Anna felt a chill as they stepped inside, the air heavy with the scent of incense and history. They found a side chapel dedicated to the souls of the departed. A small plaque caught Anna's eye, inscribed with Isabella's name and a brief epitaph. To Isabella, who was betrayed and lost, may she find peace. This is it, Anna whispered. This is where she was laid to rest. Marco placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. We're getting closer, he said. We need to find someone who knows more about the church's history. They approached the church's priest, Father Matteo, a kindly old man with a deep knowledge of Venice's history. He listened intently as Anna explained their quest. Ah, Isabella, he said, his voice tinged with sadness. Her story is a tragic one. She was a devout parishioner here, always seeking solace in the church. When she died, we honored her memory, but her spirit has never been at peace. Father Matteo led them to a small, dusty room filled with old records and relics. These are the church's archives, he said. Perhaps you will find what you are looking for here. Anna and Marco spent the rest of the day sorting through the documents. They found letters written by Isabella to Lorenzo, full of love and hope, and a final heartbreaking note she had written on the night of her death, expressing her despair and betrayal. We have to do something, Anna said, tears in her eyes. We have to give her the justice she was denied. As they left the church, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the city. Anna felt a renewed sense of purpose. They now had the evidence they needed to confront Lorenzo's descendants and bring Isabella's story to light. That night, the supernatural occurrences in their hotel room reached a fever pitch. Objects flew across the room. The air grew icy cold, and Isabella's anguished cries echoed through the walls. Anna and Marco huddled together, determined to see this through despite their fear. We're close, Anna whispered. We're so close. The next morning, they prepared for the séance, hoping to communicate directly with Isabella and find out how they could help her find peace. The local historian who had agreed to assist them arrived, bringing with him the necessary tools and a calm, reassuring presence. As they set up the séance in their hotel room, Anna felt a mixture of fear and hope. They were about to step into the unknown, to reach out to a spirit trapped between worlds. She took Marco's hand, drawing strength from his steady presence. We're ready, she said, her voice firm despite the tremor in her heart. Let's do this. The room was dimly lit by a circle of candles, their flickering light casting eerie shadows on the walls. The local historian, Enrico, arranged the candles carefully, ensuring the circle was complete. He placed a small wooden table in the center, covered with an antique cloth embroidered with protective symbols. Anna, Marco, and Enrico sat around the table, their hands lightly touching. Enrico began the séance with a soft chant in Italian, invoking the spirits and asking for Isabella's presence. The air in the room seemed to grow heavier, the temperature dropping as if a window had been left open to the cold night air. Anna's heart pounded in her chest. She had never done anything like this before, and the combination of fear and anticipation made her breath come in short, quick bursts. Marco squeezed her hand, offering silent support. Isabella, Enrico called out, his voice steady and calm. We are here to help you. We seek the truth of your story. If you are present, please give us a sign. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the flames of the candles flickered violently, almost going out, before returning to their steady glow. A chill ran down Anna's spine, and she knew Isabella was with them. Isabella, Anna said, her voice trembling. We know about your betrayal. We know about Lorenzo. We want to help you find peace. Please tell us what we need to do." The room grew colder still, and a faint whisper filled the air. It was as if the walls themselves were speaking, the sound barely audible but unmistakably there. Anna strained to hear, her pulse racing. "Find him," the voice whispered. "Reveal the truth." A sudden gust of wind blew through the room, extinguishing the candles. The darkness was absolute, and Anna felt a moment of pure terror. Marco's grip tightened on her hand, grounding her. Enrico relit the candles, his expression serious. "She is strong," he said, "and she is angry. We must be careful. How do we reveal the truth?" Marco asked. "We have the evidence, but how do we make sure it reaches the right people?" Enrico nodded thoughtfully. "We need to confront Lorenzo's descendants. They are the key. If they acknowledge the truth, Isabella may find peace." The séance continued, with Isabella's presence growing stronger. She revealed more details of her betrayal, her words filled with sorrow and rage. Anna felt a deep connection to the spirit, a sense of responsibility to help her find the justice she deserved. When the séance ended, the room was left in an uneasy silence. The candles burned low, their light casting long shadows that seemed to dance and twist. Anna and Marco were both exhausted, but there was a newfound determination in their eyes. "We need to find Lorenzo's descendants," Anna said. "We have to make them acknowledge what happened." Enrico agreed. "There is a powerful family in Venice, the Contarini, who have long ties to the city's history. It is said that Lorenzo was one of their ancestors. They will not be easy to confront, but it is the only way." That night, as Anna and Marco prepared for bed, the supernatural occurrences continued. Isabella's spirit was restless, her presence a constant reminder of their mission. Objects moved on their own, and faint whispers filled the air. Anna's dreams were once again filled with visions of Isabella's last moments. She saw the young woman standing by the canal, waiting for her lover, only to be met with cold water and betrayal. The pain and fear in Isabella's eyes were almost too much to bear. When she woke, Marco was already awake, staring at the ceiling. "We need to do this," he said. "For Isabella. For us." Anna nodded, her resolve strengthening. "We will. Tomorrow, we'll find the Contarini and make them listen." The next morning, they set out to find the Contarini family. Their search led them to a grand palazzo near the Rialto Bridge, a testament to the family's wealth and influence. They requested an audience with the head of the family, explaining that they had important historical information to share. To their surprise, they were granted a meeting. They were led into a lavish sitting room, where they waited nervously. The atmosphere was tense, the air heavy with anticipation. When the head of the Contarini family, Count Vittorio, entered the room, he regarded them with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. "What is this about?" he asked, his tone sharp. Anna took a deep breath and began to explain. She told him about Isabella, about Lorenzo's betrayal, and the haunting that had plagued them. She presented the evidence they had gathered, the old diary entries and the letters. Count Vittorio listened silently, his expression unreadable. When Anna finished, he stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the canal. "These are serious accusations," he said finally. "You are accusing my family of a grave crime." "We are not here to accuse," Marco said. "We are here to uncover the truth and help a restless spirit find peace." Count Vittorio turned to face them, his eyes hard. "And what do you expect me to do?" "Publicly acknowledge what happened," Anna said. "Honor Isabella's memory. Only then can her spirit find peace." The Count was silent for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. "Very well. I will look into this matter. If what you say is true, we will do what is necessary." As they left the palazzo, Anna felt a sense of hope mingled with uncertainty. They had taken a significant step, but the journey was far from over. They still had to ensure that Count Vittorio followed through on his promise. That night, as they returned to their hotel room, the atmosphere felt different. The air was still cold, and the whispers continued, but there was a sense of anticipation rather than anger. "We did it," Anna said, her voice filled with hope. "We've started to make things right." Marco hugged her tightly. "We'll see this through, Anna. We'll help Isabella find peace." As they drifted off to sleep, Anna felt a calmness she hadn't felt since they arrived in Venice. They were on the right path, and with each step, they were closer to uncovering the truth and freeing Isabella's spirit from the haunting shadows of Venice. The following morning, the tension of their previous encounter with Count Vittorio lingered in the air. Anna and Marco prepared themselves for what they knew would be a challenging day. The future of Isabella's spirit and their own safety hung in the balance. Anna couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched as they walked through the bustling streets of Venice. The shadows seemed longer, darker, and the whispers more persistent. She tightened her grip on Marco's hand, drawing strength from his steady presence. "We need to be careful," Marco said quietly. "The Contarini family is powerful, and they might not be too pleased about us digging into their past." Anna nodded. "I know, but we can't stop now. We're too close." Their first stop was a small cafe where they met Enrico, the local historian who had helped them with the séance. He greeted them with a warm smile, though his eyes were serious. "I've heard whispers that the Contarini are not happy with your investigation," he said. "You must tread carefully." Anna explained their plan to confront the Contarini family again, this time with the intent to push them to publicly acknowledge Isabella's story. Enrico agreed to accompany them, his presence providing both support and credibility. Together, they returned to the Contarini Palazzo. This time, their reception was less welcoming. The butler who greeted them was stern, his eyes cold. "The Count is not pleased with your persistence," he said, "but he will see you." They were led to the same lavish sitting room as before, but the atmosphere was charged with tension. Count Vittorio entered, his expression hard. "You have returned," he said, his voice icy. "What more do you want from us?" Anna stepped forward, her resolve unwavering. "We want you to honor Isabella's memory. She deserves recognition and justice. Her spirit cannot rest until the truth is acknowledged." The Count's eyes narrowed. "You are meddling in matters that do not concern you. My family's history is our own." Enrico spoke up, his voice calm but firm. "The past always concerns us. It shapes our present and our future. Ignoring it only allows old wounds to fester." The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Count Vittorio's gaze shifted from Anna to Enrico, then back to Marco. Finally, he sighed, a deep, weary sound. "Very well. I will arrange for a public acknowledgement of Isabella's story. But understand this, my family's reputation is at stake. If this goes wrong, there will be consequences." Anna felt a wave of relief mixed with apprehension. They had secured the Count's promise, but she knew their journey was far from over. The public acknowledgement had to be handled delicately, and there was still the matter of ensuring Isabella's spirit found peace. As they left the palazzo, Enrico turned to them. "You've done well, but be vigilant. The Contarini are not known for their forgiveness." That night, back in their hotel room, the supernatural occurrences intensified once more. Isabella's presence was stronger, her emotions more palpable. The room grew icy cold, and the whispers turned to anguished cries. Objects flew across the room, and the candles flickered wildly. Anna and Marco huddled together, their fear palpable. "We're so close," Anna whispered. "We just need to hold on a little longer." In the midst of the chaos, a loud bang echoed through the room, and the door flew open. Standing in the doorway was the shadowy figure they had seen before, its presence menacing and cold. Anna's heart raced, but she stood her ground, facing the figure. "Isabella," she called out, her voice trembling. "We're doing this for you. We're trying to help you find peace." The figure didn't move, but the air around it seemed to shimmer with emotion. Slowly, it raised a hand, pointing towards the window. Anna turned to see a single candle still burning brightly, its flame steady and unwavering. Marco squeezed her hand. "It's a sign," he said. "We're on the right path." The next morning, they awoke to the sound of church bells ringing in the distance. They knew the day of the public acknowledgement had arrived. Count Vittorio had arranged for a small ceremony at the Church of San Giovanni e Paolo, where Isabella had been laid to rest. Anna and Marco arrived at the church, their hearts pounding. A small crowd had gathered, including members of the Contarini family, local historians, and curious onlookers. Count Vittorio stood at the front, his expression solemn. As the ceremony began, Count Vittorio stepped forward to speak. Today, we acknowledge the tragic story of Isabella, a woman betrayed and lost to the waters of Venice. We honor her memory and seek to right the wrongs of the past. Anna felt a sense of relief wash over her as the Count spoke. The acknowledgement was a crucial step in helping Isabella's spirit find peace. As the ceremony concluded, she could almost feel Isabella's presence, a gentle warmth in the cool air. That night, back in their hotel room, the atmosphere was different. The air was still and peaceful, the whispers and cold spots gone. Anna and Marco lay in bed, their hearts lighter. "We did it," Marco said, his voice filled with quiet triumph. "We helped her find peace." Anna nodded, tears of relief streaming down her face. "We did. And now maybe we can find some peace too." As they drifted off to sleep, the shadows that had haunted them seemed to fade away, leaving only the soft glow of the candle, a symbol of the light they had brought to the haunting shadows of Venice. The following days passed in a strange mixture of calm and anticipation. The public acknowledgement had brought some peace to the air, but Anna and Marco both knew that their journey was not yet complete. There was still an unresolved tension, a feeling that Isabella's spirit was not entirely at rest. One evening, as the sun set and the shadows began to lengthen, Anna received an unexpected message from Enrico. He had discovered something new in the church archives, something that could be crucial to finally laying Isabella's spirit to rest. They agreed to meet him at San Giovanni e Paolo later that night. As they made their way to the church, the streets of Venice seemed unusually quiet. The mist from the canals wrapped around them, and the distant sound of church bells added to the eerie atmosphere. Marco held Anna's hand tightly, sensing her unease. Enrico greeted them at the church door, his expression serious. "I've found something," he said, leading them inside. He guided them to the side chapel, where Isabella's plaque was displayed. "There was a letter," Enrico explained, pulling out a carefully preserved piece of parchment. It was written by Lorenzo on the night of Isabella's death. He confessed his betrayal, but also mentioned something else, a curse he believed he had placed upon her spirit. Anna's heart raced as she read the letter. Lorenzo had been desperate to keep his reputation intact, and in his fear, he had performed a dark ritual, binding Isabella's spirit to the canal. The ritual was incomplete, and it had left Isabella trapped between worlds, unable to find peace. "We need to break the curse," Enrico said. "There's a way to do it, but it's dangerous. It requires confronting Isabella's spirit directly and performing a cleansing ritual." Anna and Marco exchanged a determined look. "We'll do it," Anna said. "Whatever it takes to help her." They gathered the necessary items for the ritual: candles, herbs, and a bowl of holy water. Enrico explained the steps carefully, emphasizing the importance of each one. As the preparations were made, Anna felt a mixture of fear and resolve. The church was quiet, the air heavy with anticipation. They formed a circle around Isabella's plaque, lighting the candles and placing the herbs in the bowl of holy water. Enrico began the chant, his voice echoing through the silent church. "Isabella," Anna called out, her voice strong despite her trembling hands. "We are here to help you. We know about the curse. We are here to set you free." The air grew colder, and a gust of wind blew through the church, extinguishing the candles. The shadows around them seemed to come alive, and Anna felt a presence growing stronger. She could see the faint outline of Isabella's spirit, her eyes filled with sorrow and anger. "Lorenzo's curse has kept you here," Anna continued, her voice steady. "But we are here to break it. You deserve peace." Marco stepped forward, holding the bowl of holy water. "We cleanse this place of darkness," he said, his voice firm. "We break the chains that bind Isabella's spirit. We release her from this curse." Enrico joined in, his chant growing louder. The candles relit themselves, their flames burning bright and steady. The shadows recoiled, and Isabella's spirit seemed to shimmer with a soft light. Anna reached out, her hand passing through Isabella's ghostly form. "You are free, Isabella," she whispered. "Go in peace." With a final surge of energy, the room filled with a brilliant light. Isabella's spirit smiled, a look of gratitude in her eyes, before fading away completely. The air grew warm, and a sense of calm settled over the church. "It's done," Enrico said, his voice filled with relief. "She's finally at peace." Anna and Marco hugged, tears of relief streaming down their faces. The weight of the past days lifted, leaving them with a profound sense of accomplishment. As they left the church, the night air felt different, lighter, more peaceful. The mist had cleared, and the stars shone brightly above the canal. They walked back to their hotel, hand in hand, feeling a sense of closure. That night, their hotel room was quiet and calm. The whispers were gone, and the cold spots had disappeared. Anna and Marco lay in bed, their hearts full of gratitude and peace. "We did it," Marco said softly. "We helped her find peace." Anna nodded, her eyes closing as she drifted off to sleep. "Yes, we did. And now we can finally rest too." As they slept, the candle on the windowsill burned brightly, a symbol of the light they had brought to the haunting shadows of Venice. Morning arrived with a gentle light streaming through the tall windows of their hotel room. The air was warm and still, free from the chill that had lingered during their stay. Anna and Marco woke up feeling lighter. The weight of their supernatural ordeal finally lifted. They packed their bags, preparing to leave the city that had given them so much more than just a honeymoon. As they made their way downstairs, they were greeted by the hotel owner, who seemed to sense the change in the atmosphere. "You've done something remarkable," he said, his eyes twinkling with respect. "The spirit of Isabella has been put to rest. This place feels different now." Anna smiled. "Thank you. It's been an unforgettable experience." With their luggage in tow, they stepped out into the bustling streets of Venice. The city seemed brighter, the canals sparkling under the morning sun. As they walked, Anna felt a deep sense of gratitude for everything they had experienced and learned. Their first stop was the Church of San Giovanni e Paolo, where they wanted to pay their final respects to Isabella. The church was quiet, the side chapel filled with the soft glow of candlelight. They stood before Isabella's plaque, a sense of peace settling over them. "Thank you, Isabella," Anna whispered. "May you rest in peace." As they left the church, they noticed Enrico waiting for them outside. He greeted them with a warm smile. "You've done a great service to this city and to Isabella's memory. I'm proud to have been part of it." "We couldn't have done it without you," Marco replied. "Thank you for all your help." Enrico nodded. "Take care and remember, Venice always has more stories to tell. Perhaps our paths will cross again." With final farewells exchanged, Anna and Marco made their way to the Vaporetto stop, ready to embark on the next leg of their journey. As they boarded the water bus, Anna looked back at the city, her heart full of fond memories and a sense of closure. They found seats near the back, the gentle rocking of the boat soothing after the intense days they had endured. Marco took out his camera, flipping through the photos he had taken. "These pictures will tell quite a story," he said with a smile. Anna nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. "We should write about this, Isabella's story, our journey. It could help others understand the importance of uncovering the past." Marco agreed. "We'll make sure her story is remembered." As the Vaporetto glided through the canals, they talked about their plans for the future. The experience had brought them closer together, strengthening their bond and giving them a renewed sense of purpose. They knew that their love for history and adventure would continue to guide them. When they reached their destination, they stepped off the boat, ready to explore new places and create new memories. Venice had given them more than they had ever expected, and they left with a sense of fulfillment and peace. As they walked away, the city's beauty seemed even more profound, the shadows that had once haunted them replaced by light and hope. Anna glanced back one last time, feeling a deep connection to the city and its history. "We did it," she said softly. "We brought light to the shadows." Marco squeezed her hand. "And we'll continue to do so, wherever our adventures take us." With hearts full of hope and a sense of accomplishment, they walked on, ready to embrace whatever the future held. The haunting shadows of Venice had been dispelled, and a new chapter awaited them, filled with the promise of discovery and the enduring power of love. If you enjoyed unraveling this, you're in for another spine-tingling tale. Click the video on your screen to discover more eerie stories from the Phantom Story Society, where history's darkest secrets come to life. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Until next time, stay curious and beware of the shadows.